So back in the real world of high performance motoring, away from the McLaren P1 and the Ferrari, this car, the new Renaultsport Clio 200 Turbo, is one of the most hotly anticipated performance cars of this year, I reckon. Up there is a 1.6 litre turbo engine, so no longer a 2 litre atmospheric. It has 197 horsepower, so you don't lose anything there compared with the old car, and it has 177 pounds-feet of torque, so you don't lose out there either. And the really big news with this car are these two things, these little metal paddles, which belong actually to the Nissan GT-R. And what they mean is that you get, in the new Clio Renaultsport, a dual clutch gearbox. Just like the gearbox that you get in a Ferrari 458 or a McLaren MB412C. And that is pretty amazing considering the asking price is £18,995. It sounds like an awful lot of car for not very much money then. But, says Renaultsport, it's also a much more grown-up car than before, which is why you get 44 mpg on the combined cycle, far less emissions, and yet it'll still get to 60 quicker than before, 6.7 they reckon, to 62 miles an hour, with a higher top speed of over 140. So what they're saying this time round is that under just one roof you get not one, not even two, but three different cars. And the reason they're saying that is because there's this new Renaultsport program, which you engage by pressing this button down here by the gear lever. So you have a normal mode for the steering, the throttle, the gear change speeds. Then you have a Renaultsport mode, which just sharpens everything up a little bit. And then you have a race mode, in which you would expect horns to grow out the side of your head and numbers to appear on the side of the car. Renaultsport reckon race mode turns this into a road-going racing car. Are they right? Let's have a see. They've done all sorts of clever stuff with the exhaust, and you get engine noise piped into the cabin, which you can hear makes quite a dramatic sound. And it has bags and bags of grip. The composure this thing's got, and the speed that you can cover ground in it it's pretty impressive. It's very impressive. But I'm not convinced by the gear change at all. It is not fast enough, even in race mode. It doesn't give you downshifts quick enough when you want them, and it doesn't really give you upshifts quick enough either. So I'm sure Renaultsport have spent a small fortune on engineering this car with a dual clutch gearbox, but I think they needed to work a little bit harder on the software, to be brutal. So in isolation, the good bits about the new Renaultsport Clio are its performance, its composure, its comfort, its refinement. It's also very economical and ecologically more sound than the car it replaces. But to find out if it really hits the spot with the proper hardcore driving enthusiast, I think we need to introduce it to a proper hardcore driving enthusiast's car, and that is the Toyota GT86. How does the Renault compare with that? See, when you really start to chuck it around a bit, it's pretty good. I mean, it's very, very composed. And there's no doubting how fast you can cover ground in it. I mean, you could drop some proper sports cars in this if you drove it with a bit of gusto, which it does react to quite well. But it's never quite making my heart rate go up and making my pulse thump like the old car did. It's not too refined and too composed for its own good, but it could do with just being a little bit Can't knock it for how quick it is though. There's not a lot that we don't already know about Toyota's GT86. It really is exquisite. Toyota have hit the nail right on the head. But what's it like next to the Clio? Well, it's a lot more expensive. It costs £6,000 more than the Clio. Obviously, it's rear-wheel drive, which gives it a completely different set of handling characteristics, arguably a nicer balance. But power-wise, you get exactly the same as you do in the Clio, 197 bhp, but you get less torque and a little bit more weight for that torque to pull. As a result, you have to pedal the GT86 pretty hard in order to merely stay with the Clio. To try and go quicker than the Clio, I think would be impossible. It has pathetic grip beside the Clio, and yet it is the more fun to drive, without question. It's hilarious to drive. I mean, you cannot do that kind of stuff in the Clio because it's on rails. Is that logical that the Toyota should be that much more fun because on paper it's that much less competent? I don't know, but all I do know is that from behind this wheel, sitting in this seat, the smile on this face is a lot wider than it is when I'm driving the Clio, pretty much at any time. The less great things about the GT86 are its engine. I still think it's a bit rough and raucous right at the top. The gearbox, even though it's a manual, is a little bit notchy on occasions. However, having said that, I massively prefer the Toyota's manual gearbox to the Clio's new dual clutch. You know exactly where you are with the 3-pedal setup in this car, but in the Clio, occasionally, it just doesn't happen fast enough. I've been a huge advocate of dual clutch gearboxes, basically spelling the end of manual gearboxes, but in this case, I still think the manual is better. As far as I'm concerned, it blows the Clio into next week. Sorry about this Renault Sport, but there's no two ways about it. The GT86 is a fantastic driver's car, a proper sharp instrument that you need to know what you're doing in order to get the most out of. The Clio, I'm afraid, is no longer like that. It's a much more rounded car that will appeal to a broader audience. Great, but I'm afraid I'm not sure I'm in that audience anymore. Oh, that's a bit harsh. The Clio's very good, but it is not as good as the GT86.